Welcome to the Extraordinary Marriage. I'm Connie Durham, your host of the show. And today I have Gail West, and she's married and she's got some things she's going to discuss with us today that usually can give us a little trouble in marriage. Welcome, Gail.
So happy to be here, Connie.
All right. So let's start out today with a little bit about yourself and maybe how long you've been married and where you met your husband.
Well, actually, we've been together 10 years and we've been married a little more than a year. So,
A newlywed. I did not know
yeah,
that.
yeah. So, we met, both of us are trained in something called internal family systems, which is a psychotherapeutic model. And I used to be a psychotherapist for many, many years, but then I kind of now do coaching and he does coaching also. So we met at a conference and way back then I was thinking, well, maybe I'll do the online thing. And I'm like, no, I'm going to meet somebody in the being of life. And that's how we met. I was presenting, he was presenting, and then we kind of like connected. And we've
Well,
been together ever since.
and that has to be a good thing because when you have things in common in marriage, you got something to talk about. And I would say if you're in the same area, then you speak the same kind of language that maybe everybody else doesn't understand, but you do.
Yeah, so and we have a lot of values, similar values, and that's really important to me. And I wanted somebody who wasn't afraid to say the word God. So we have a
Thank
really
you.
strong spiritual connection. So all those things. So I said to him the other day, well, the spiritual thing is the only thing that held us together when it was hard, because that was something that was really, really important to me. And it's always not always so easy to find somebody who has similar spiritual values and similar values.
Well, I think that spiritual values and godly values actually, I mean, they definitely help you have a better marriage because it's not all about you.
Right.
And I think that that helps. But tell me about your 10 years, because 10 years of dating or being friends or going out, and now you're a newlywed.
Well, we were living together, so we were
That
dating.
happens.
And people say, well, what was the impetus? And so 3 years ago, I had a stroke.
Mm.
And that was really traumatic for him because he realized he had no rights.
Ooh, yeah.
He couldn't say, you know, have any say about my care or anything else. And that was during COVID also, and he couldn't see me. So that was something that was really, really kind of a come to Jesus moment. Like,
Yeah.
hello, if I want to be with this woman, I'm going to have to step up.
And that's like stepping up the commitment, right? Even though he's probably committed before, but
Yeah.
it's stepping up the commitment. And I would say that was a double whammy because during COVID, we don't like to use that word. It's a dirty word. But, during COVID, that's a double whammy because he couldn't have any say and he couldn't see you because even married
No,
people,
no,
went in the hospital and they couldn't see each other,
no.
touch or anything. It was really crazy.
And he had to take care of me afterwards because I couldn't drive. And he had to drive me to all my PT and OT and speech therapy. So it was a commitment for him that he had to step up.
Well, I guess you have a hallelujah because here you are today.
Yeah.
And I didn't know you before, but you look perfectly fine to me.
It's been a challenge and it's been a journey, but
In
it's
a
been
journey.
really
Yeah.
powerful journey.
But you know
When
what?
you,
He stuck by you
yep,
during that time and you got married after that.
yep. And then we moved to California.
So where are you at now?
We're in Los Gatos, California, which is right next to San Jose, and we moved here from Chicago. I lived in
Oh,
Chicago for many, many years, and it's just so beautiful. Every day we go, we live in paradise. We live in paradise.
it is
Birds are
beautiful.
chirping. The sun isn't shining today, but mountains and greenery and flowers. It's so beautiful.
I used to live in California. I'm not from there, but I grew up there. And yes, it is beautiful. I've been back few different times. So, well, tell me, let's start out with then during your 10 years, what brought you together besides the fact that you came from the same business? What did you guys enjoy about each other?
Well, the spiritual piece was really important. And I was doing a workshop. So he lived in Pennsylvania. I lived in Chicago. And we were trying to figure out a way that we can get together. And I said, well, the only weekend that we had was this particular weekend. Otherwise, it's going to be months later. And I was teaching a workshop on intuition. And he goes, well, I said, well, I'm teaching this workshop. Would you like to go? And he goes, yeah. I said, would you like to know what it is? He goes, well, anything you're doing is going to be good, I'm sure. Like,
Ah,
that was the beginning. And that was like, oh my God, there's somebody that I can work with that is really open. And yeah, so that's where it was. And he's been supportive. I've done a lot of workshops in Hong Kong. I used to live in China, so he would come with me, he would support me. So it's like just having somebody by your side has been really great.
absolutely.
And he's a kind
Um,
man.
he's a kind man. We like that.
Yeah, he's very kind, very generous.
I bet you're kind too.
Thank you.
Yeah,
It's
I bet it's good whenever two kind people find each other, right?
Oh, one of the things I would, excuse me, so I used to do psychotherapy many, many years ago, and I'd have couples, and and I actually did officiated at a few weddings, and I would say, okay, when you first get together, you have all these incredible memories, and those are like deposits in the bank.
Yes.
And what you're doing is you're planting the seeds of your garden of love, you know. But once people get married, they don't take care of their garden, and it gets weedy, and then they look at their garden and go, it's not growing. And I said, you have to tend to your garden all the time. This is not just like, oh, okay, we're married and now we're going to go off. It's about kindness. It's about caring. It's about being being the best that you can be. And love is a verb. And really feeling into the idea that love is a verb. And so we have our vows on the taped on the bathroom mirror. And so I look at them every day, and I'm sure he does too. And we talk about it. Like, what is it? Where are we as far as these vows? So we really feel into what did we commit to? And are we living our commitment?
Well, I was just talking about something on another agenda, and I was talking about commitment and those kind of things. But I was just thinking on my podcast in the first one or two or three episodes, Jackie Cote, she works out of an RV, and it turned out that they had been together for a long time and that they had just gotten married that year. And I
Oh,
had worked with
cool.
her before, and so I didn't realize that. And so,
Yeah,
there's a specialness to that on that commitment.
yeah.
So, one thing I'll ask before we get to the other things that you do is, you're both kind and you're both easy, probably easygoing, I'm guessing. Maybe easygoing. So, what's an up or down? What's one of the things that have given you a challenge that y'all have overcome?
Well, the big challenge that we had in the beginning was I was divorced in 86, was a long time ago. And I had relationships, I lived with people, but it wasn't very long-term relationships. So this was the first time I'd been living alone for many, many years. So this is the first time that we'd been together, and he was married for a long time. So his idea of space was very different than my idea of space. And I'd go, I need space. I need space. Well, what do you want me to do? Well, get out of here. So he had no idea about space. And I would get like really anxious when I didn't get my space. And so that was something that we really had to struggle with. And the other thing that we struggled with was his sense of time is very different than my sense of time. So in the beginning, I'd say, well, we need to talk about that. And you go, okay, we need to put it on the calendar. I'm like, we live together. Well, if it's not on the calendar, it's not going to happen.
That's funny.
So his idea of the calendar, like he was really attached to his calendar. So that was another kind of struggle that we had. So we've really navigated through all of those. And the other thing that we started doing is when we are kind of angry with each other, we look at each other and go, shh, shh. So we can instead of going after each other, we can both do this kind of, and it's a kind of weird thing, but it's like
I can see the value.
yeah, so it kind of dissipates the tension, and then we laugh.
I was going to ask if you laugh then, because
Yeah.
sometimes we're mad or we're getting irritated over things that don't matter so much. Think if he never gave you your space and you just always felt crowded, but it was as simple as just giving you your space, right?
Well, he didn't know what it meant because he'd been married for so long. He didn't understand that I'd been living alone for many years.
Ah,
So for him, I'd say connection. You need connection. Because he's more the female in the relationship, and I'm more the male in the relationship. I'm more T oriented, and I don't know if
you're
you
saying he's needy, aren't you? He's
yeah,
needy, and you're like,
no, I
nope,
wouldn't
nope,
say women aren't needy. So he's more touchy feely, and that's not me.
touchy feely. Gotcha.
So he loves feelings, being with feelings, and I love, oh, let's talk about interesting things. So the way I connect is through intellectual stimulation. The way he connects is just, about talking about feelings. So it's a
Being
very different,
together.
yeah. So it's a very different way that we feel connection.
Yes. And sometimes people have a lot of trouble when they get married if they're not able to verbalize those things because we are also different. And if we can't verbalize how we feel or what we need, then our spouse cannot read our mind, right?
Well, and the interesting thing is most of us believe that the person we're with or anybody that we're with has the same idea of what's going on as far as we. But people's reality is very different. So what I perceive as so we look at the other person that they must have done that because of this, but probably that had nothing to do with their reaction. But we assume that everything that is in us is in the other person. That's not true.
We assume they see things the same way we do.
And it
I've been
doesn't
married
have.
44 years
Oh my
and still my husband and I think it's gotten worse actually. Anyway, I think it's gotten worse where um he also has that thing. He's listening, so he'll be listening to this. But it's like where he wants to be together a lot. Well, I need to have togetherness too. But and with that, I just forgot where I was going with that. I guess I wasn't supposed to say it.
Well, and that's another thing. There's a difference. People's love language is very different. And so
Mhm.
really honoring that if you know what your love language is, then you can say, well, that's what they need and this is what I need. And so you're right. The more that you verbalize, the more so I was doing a podcast yesterday. We were talking about how people don't tend to ask for what they need. And this is really clear in a relationship, particularly with women sometimes, where we had a situation where Christmas, he said, well, I didn't know what to get you. And I'm like, hello, you know me. We've been together 10 years. What do you mean you didn't know what to get me? So Valentine's Day was coming up and we're walking past this jewelry store. I'm looking in the window and I'd seen this pair of earrings before and I really liked them. And I said, oh, look at that pair of earrings. Isn't it nice? And that's what he got me for Valentine's Day. I
Did
said,
you really like them?
I really did.
That's
Um,
good.
so and I kind of wanted him to get them for me. I didn't want to get them for myself. And I said, "Oh, thank you so much." He goes, "Well, it was really helpful that you told me what you wanted." And
Okay.
that,
Well, I'm going to take that at a different place because, like, my husband is like that too, where he might, in that moment, like, maybe there's stuff I always like and I always love, but maybe just in a moment, I go, oh my gosh, that's so pretty. And so that he thinks, oh, she wants that. And sometimes it's like, I think a lot of things are pretty and I like a lot of things, but I'm probably the controller of money. And so I am like, I like that, but I don't need to have it. And so I have to be very straightforward and be like, I really do want that. Did you see that? You know?
Well, yeah, so you're telling him how to be in relationship with you, and that's the key, to let the other person know what works for you instead of assuming that they know. Well, they should know, they should just know. Nobody knows. What's happening inside of you is pretty secret oftentimes.
And that's what I was going to say that I forgot a minute ago is that lately we've had a lot of examples of how I'm hearing words one way and he hears those words an absolute another way. And I've been
Totally.
married forever. How is this happening? You know?
Well, people change, and one would hope that you're not the same person that you were in your 20s, and you have probably different interests or different ideas of who you are. So one would hope that every one of us develops and changes, and that's probably one of the issues in when people get older, is that one person really developed, the other person didn't, or they developed
Yeah.
in a different way and they didn't take their spouse with them.
Yeah. Well, Gail, what is your expertise now? What do you do now?
Well, I wrote a book called Money Come Dance with Me, and I work a lot with people around their issues around money and success. And the idea is that money has a consciousness. It's an expression of divine source in the marketplace. And if most people are have a really dysfunctional relationship to money, and that money is probably one of the most intimate relationships we'll ever have. You know, spouses can come and go, friends can come and go, but you will always have a relationship with money.
Okay. Now I'm going to take that in a funny manner because I'm thinking you will always have a relationship with money. Now I'm about husbands and wives always having a relationship. Okay. So what happens when money comes between them and they're looking at that money and their relationship with it in two different ways?
Well, that's part of the issue, is that people have different relationships with money, and a lot of it has to do with how you were raised around money, your
Hmm.
trauma around money, ancestral issues around money. All of that is passed on, and how our parents spent and how so. If one parent was really frugal or almost penurial, and the other one was, spending a lot, that that creates a disconnect within us. So having a really clear idea of how we are with money helps us, and we're going back to this idea of a relationship. So if we have a relationship to money, we also have a relationship with each other. And so really fleshing out what that relationship is about.
Well, Gail, that makes me think. Last night I had to go get a new printer. And we started to order it online and then we thought about this and that. And then it's like, oh, I want to go get it now. So I ran by Walmart. So we went to Walmart, and while we were at Walmart getting that printer, then we started to look at shoes, and we don't always buy shoes at Walmart. But I remember when my kids were little, you bought shoes at the store like that that were, less expensive because that's how I was raised. You spend your money carefully, and name brands didn't matter so much. There's some things in quality matters, but name brands don't always matter so much. But we don't always buy Walmart shoes. I buy Skechers and stuff like that to keep my feet happy. Sometimes we have to spend a little more to keep our feet happy, or because of the quality and what works for us. But we were looking at some of the Walmart shoes, and we were like, we found some good shoes, and they're like just way less expensive, and they were pretty good looking shoes. And that's a good example of how families spend their money differently. And I'm going to take this into keeping it into a marital thing. Like when two people come together and one is like, oh, I have to have the latest and the greatest, or I have to have the name brand shoe and I'm willing to pay full price. Now you could tell where I'm coming from, right?
Yeah.
For me, I'm gonna find it on sale. I'm gonna find it at Ross. I'm gonna find it at TJ Maxx or somewhere like that. And I'm gonna have a good shoe if I need it, but I'm not gonna pay full price. So those things of now I hear you talking about relationship with money, and I would say our relationship with money causes a lot of trouble in marriages.
It does. And so that's a good example of how to navigate. So if in fact you want to have this, so I talk about putting a certain amount of money aside. And I think it's really important for people for when you have a couple to each have their own money. And so if uh, so depending so I've worked with a lot of gay couples where one was made a whole lot more than the other. So what I would have them do is put a certain percentage in the pot, and all of that would go for, household expenses. And
But
then a certain percentage went for each person to spend however they wanted to spend. So we have a certain amount of freedom within that. So if your husband was really into, I really want to spend full price and I want it to be really high quality, blah, 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 he could do that with his money. But it's not going to affect the general pot of the household expenses.
well, do you think sometimes men and women, men maybe if they're making more money, then they expect to have more control of the money? Or how about the value of women who stay home or work part-time or, keep kids, take care of their children, you know? Um,
They should have a salary.
oh, that sounds good.
Well, yeah, because they're providing a so that's been a problem with so many women, is that their who they were was not valued because it wasn't paid. So in our society, your value goes to how much you earn. That has nothing to do with our value. So one of the things I recommend is that the woman has her own money that is honoring what she brings to the home.
And also that lets her make her own choices of how she spends her money or what's most
Yeah,
important to her.
yeah, right. So, and there's no struggle, there's no judgment about that. That's how she wants to spend her money. And there's a certain pot, so she can save it for something that's really expensive or not.
Well, my husband and I, probably because that's how his parents did it, and honestly, it's how my parents did it too, is put all our money together.
Yeah.
And then there again, if you have a stronger personality who has to have all the say, I would say probably I was the one in our marriage who was like, penny pinching because my dad taught me to hold tightly to money and, first thing you do is buy a house and those kind of things. But so I was the one who was more of a penny pincher, and he's very giving. But I want to tell a story about as I realized one day that as a female, now my husband never made me feel this way. So maybe it's from childhood or something like that, but he never made me feel this way. But when my kids were little, I taught dance, and so I had a little extra money. But we threw everything in the pot, and pretty much my husband gave me say of how we spent our money because I did all the shopping, and he made money, but I paid the bills. So I taught dance. Then later, I became a consultant with Mary Kay, and I became a sales director with Mary Kay. And so I threw all my money. We put all our money in the pot as usual. And as I started into what I do now, I started to realize that I personally had issues because I don't know about money. And I realized it was for me, it was this. And there may be somebody else out there that has had this hold them back in something too. I realized that when I taught dance, I never went to work. I was always going to dance class. And when I did Mary Kay, I was never going to work. I never said, I'm going to work. I always did Mary Kay, or I'm, having a Mary Kay party or doing facials. There again, I didn't go to work. And so as I began my journey in 2018 for what I do now, I had to get a different mentality because
Yeah.
you're not making money when you start your business and you have to spend money, but you're not making money. And I got that mentality of I realized that I was not valuing myself in my words. And
Mhm.
and so when I got past that and realized, you know, I do make money. I do work. I worked when I went to the dance studio and taught dance. I worked when I was doing Mary Kay parties. I was working when I was doing these things. So sometimes our words that we say to ourselves,
Oh yeah, our words are so
not
powerful.
anybody else's, just ours, you know.
Yep, yep, yep. So if I go back to this idea that each person has money that's their own, that they can spend however they want to, then it eliminates a lot of the struggles of you're spending here, you're spending there. So, for example, if if all the money didn't go into the pot, but you could save some of the money that you had from your dance class, and your husband could save whatever. So it could be the same amount, it could be different. It doesn't matter. But so that this is for you as a human being. So as adults, it's really important to recognize that we have agency. We have agency beyond this relationship. Does that make sense?
Well, I guess I'm thinking about agency beyond the relationship. I'm not sure exactly
So
what you mean. Yeah.
so when we feel like we can make a decision on behalf of ourselves and not have to answer to anybody else, that's a
Hmm.
sense of agency.
I would say my husband needed that because I was a hardcore. I held that money tightly. You know, your kids are little, you don't make as much money. And when it's gone, it's gone. You run up credit cards. And so I held it tightly. I will say now, he's just really good natured because uh because one of the other spouses holds on tightly to money. Now you had been by yourself for a long time, and so when you guys started living together, you guys probably had your own money,
Yeah.
and so you just had your own money, and so really how we handle our money, it goes back to our parents. Did dad work and take care of the family, or was there a mom and a dad, right?
Right.
Take care of the family. Did mom work? Did she contribute her money, or did she keep her money, or did dad give her an allowance, or however it is.
Well, think about the idea of an allowance. That's like what we give kids.
I was thinking that. Yes, it is.
Yeah, so even calling it an allowance dishonors the what she brings to the family. And
That's true.
that's been the issue with women in particular, not women that are younger because they have a different sense of power than we did
They do.
way back when, and our most of when I was a kid, no mothers worked. They just didn't. So, and the idea of this, you get a little pittance or an allowance, and you can kind of kind of save your pennies, this idea of saving your pennies for something that you wanted, for a lipstick or something like that, that really dishonors who we are as women and what we bring to the table.
Well, if you could give a few tips on empowering people or empowering women with money, would you have something on that?
Well, I think these days, I want to go back to it's not just about women, it's empowering yourselves. So looking at your relationship and like what's the difference between how you spend, and really having a conversation about that, and looking at how can we create a situation where it's not about a lot of divorce happens around fighting around money.
Amen to that.
Hello. And so
Mhm.
really get clear on where did my relationship come from? Is it serving me anymore? How do I want it to be? So if you've got one person who just is tight as hell, and the other person who just is the exact opposite, that's not helping. And that's going to create a lot of issues. So this idea of owning as women, we have power, we're beautiful, we we deserve to be treated with respect and dignity. We deserve to be treated as having value.
As everyone does.
Yeah, as everyone does. So how do we navigate money in relationship to that? And really asking ourselves the question, is my relationship to money serving me? How do I want to change it? Is it serving our relationship? And how do we want to change it?
Or is it causing trouble in our
Or,
relationship?
or is it
And how do
causing
we need to
trouble?
talk about it? Yeah.
Right, right. And this idea of and then and then some families will go, oh, I'm paying this and I'm paying this is my money and this is my money, and that creates a lot of tension too, because it's like, oh, is she spending more, am I spending more, blah 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 blah. It's like, you're in this together, hello, you're in this together. So the idea, I really recommend the idea that everybody puts a certain amount of money in the pot, and then you have money that's yours. That's no judgment. You can spend it however you want, but that's your money.
Well, Gail, you know that the top two reasons for divorce, and I don't know what the reason for your divorce was way back when. The top two reasons for divorce is money and your differences and communication differences. And I would probably add to that the third one would actually be that isn't, you don't find it on Google, but the third one is how we're raised and how we perceive things, how we connect with people, how we give and take. All of those kind of things come from our families, values, what do you value, and that kind of thing. So money, communication, and your past experiences, right?
That's all, it's all connected. So how we we're taught how to spend. So I taught consumer behavior. I used to live in China. I taught consumer behavior, and one of the things that we were talking about was, how do we learn how to spend? So in Europe, they spend very differently. In America, we spend the cheapest and what's going to break. Hello. In Europe, it's like high quality and really classic styles. Um, not a lot, but something that's going to last for a long time. So really looking at how we learn how to spend from our parents.
That also goes back to personality styles that I teach on, because some people are all about researching, figuring out what is the
Yeah,
best,
that's true.
buying fewer items and buying the best items, and others are about, well, it's on sale, right? And they pick it up on sale. Well,
It's really,
at
so I just want to add something. So people tend to buy things on sale just because they're on sale.
yeah,
And if you buy something on sale and you don't really like it and you don't use it very much, it's very expensive.
and
If
sometimes we
you
settle and buy what's on sale, right?
Yeah, and so yeah, I've a whole thing on that in my book. And then if you buy something that is really high quality, that you really love, you wear a lot, um, that then becomes really inexpensive. The more that you wear something, the more you give it value.
Absolutely. And I've learned, because I would be a person who buys on sale, I've learned like if this is not exactly what I want, don't settle for it because it's a waste of money and it takes up space in your closet.
Yeah, it is a waste. And so being on sale is not helpful. And most people tend to buy stuff on sale.
Oh, I still like sales, Gail.
Yeah, but I mean, if it's a sale, so just my wedding dress was $12.
Woo! I call that a great buy.
Yeah, so Patsy, who you interviewed, did my colors, and so I was out. We had the girls' getaway weekend. We were out shopping, and I was at Ross, and so my friend picks up this dress, and she goes, "Oh my God, this is so beautiful. This is your." I'm like, "Where would I ever wear this dress?" She goes, "Yeah, but it's $12. Just try it on." I'm like, "Okay, okay. If you don't buy it, I'll buy it." Like, okay, okay. So I ended up buying this $12 dress, and it's this beautiful, fully figured dress that was brocaded and blah, blah, blah. Put it in the closet. 3 years later, when my husband, well, now husband, proposes to me, and Patsy started sending me wedding dress pictures of from somewhere, and I'm
Oh,
like,
sweet.
I didn't like any of them. And I said, well, I've got that dress in the closet. I put it on. It was just stunningly gorgeous. It cost me more to get it altered than it did the dress. And so there you go.
There you
So
go.
there are things that you can buy on sale when it's something you really, really love.
We could do a Ross commercial.
Totally. But it has to be something that you're going to love, that you're going to wear a lot. Otherwise, don't bother because it's
Well,
going to be really expensive.
I totally agree. And you given us some great tips today. And it's been great getting to know you. I know for me, I want to redirect some people back to episode 23, which is 10 deadly sins that crush your marriage. And today, really, Gail's talking a lot about money and how we spend money. And you can find all her information on www.theextraordinarymarriage.com/podcast. So you can find everything about her. But Gail, what would you like to say as you're leaving, and how can they get in touch with you?
Well, my website is successwithsoul.com, and you can Gail at it's GALE at successwithsoul.com. My book is called Money Come Dance with Me. Hello, why don't we dance with money? It's great. And
I like it just because it said that. Money,
yeah,
come dance with me,
let's
right?
dance. It can be
Makes
fun.
it sound fun.
Yeah, and then on my website I have a beautiful meditation that is about healing your relationship to money and really having a powerful relationship where money can be a guide and friend. And money will guide us and will help you, and you don't have to be afraid, and you don't have to live in fear and angst and all the other ways that people live around money.
And money comes between many, many people in marriage. Thank you, Gil, for
Doesn't have
being with me
to.
today. It doesn't have to. Don't
Doesn't
let
have
money
to.
come between you, right?
No, no.
All right.
Okay.
All
Love
right.
it. Thank you so much. And it was just a blast.
Thank you. And I'll see everybody next week right here on the Extraordinary Marriage Podcast.